you have to have talent. But if you have a little bit of talent and a lot of tenacity, you will win 90% of the time.
Hey, welcome to Brand Storytellers, where we talk about brands with the people who create their stories. If you enjoy our episodes, please give us a like and a comment and subscribe to our channel so we can bring more episodes to you. Today, we're talking to a creative who could have been an art director, a writer, pretty much whatever he wanted to be, Cameron Day. Cam worked on accounts like Land Rover, Whole Foods, Shiner Beer, and did some great work for them. But Cam's also a great mentor, and he has written a series of books, beginning with Chew with Your Mind Open, an advertising survival guide. And so we're going to hear some wisdom from him on that right now. Kind of back up and give us the whole background of your book.
Great. I'd love to tell you that it was all by design.
Okay.
That I'm some creative genius who figured this out, but that's not the case. When my dad passed away, Bart, over a dozen years ago, you probably never met my dad.
No, I didn't.
And even if you were in LA advertising, you probably wouldn't have met him because he was, I wouldn't say he was reclusive. I would say he was modest. I mean, so infamously modest. He was a creative just like Jay. He was a writer just like Jay. They both had small agencies when they merged. I think the irony being Jay really enjoyed the spotlight. My dad just wanted to let the work do the talking. That's really who he was. And I wanted people to know just how much great advice I got from the man over the span of 20 years in my career. And it wasn't until I looked back, Bart, that I realized just how much great advice he gave me. One of the pieces of advice to let you know was, hey, creatives always hang with creatives. Every agency you go in. And this whole us versus them dynamic kind of comes out. He said, you don't have to do that, Cam. You can go invite the executive producer to lunch. You can go invite the president of the agency to lunch. You can go invite the account people to lunch. Don't just hang with the creatives. There's nothing wrong with hanging with the creatives, but creatives hanging with the creatives tends to be a formula for bad habits to develop, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you really understand the job and the business. So my dad's advice was to really understand the business, filter out through the whole agency and get to know all the disciplines. And I remember fellow creatives used to always think, why are you going to lunch with a 60-year-old media lady? It's just so funny how quickly definitions get dropped once you find common ground. So I think, thanks to my dad, his advice was always try to find mentors. So anyway, I wanted people to understand how much my dad shared with me. So I started sitting down and writing stories one at a time of the times that he gave me advice, and I was smart enough to take it. Worked out pretty well most of the time. Times I didn't take his advice, usually it didn't work out so well. And I speak to both in my books because, you know, one of the things about being a son is you don't always listen to your dad, even when he's Guy Day, Chiat Day. So really the impetus was to write down all those stories. And I started writing down all those stories, and I kept going and going. And before you knew it, I had 350 pages. Thought, wow. Okay, that's a longer book than I'd want to read. I thought, I think I better figure out what to do with all of this. So I thought, hey, wait a minute, why don't I break it into 3 career phases? The beginning, the middle, and what I call the high altitude stuff, because I refuse to call it the end.
So let's talk about the titles of your books, because those were very intriguing to me.
Well, the first book, I probably wrote, I don't know, 1,000 potential titles. I was really beating myself up, and I was looking at Jerry Della Femina's book titles and whatnot.
Oh,
and then onto my list, onto my list fell a line, Chew with Your Mind Open. Mm-hmm. And my son was looking over my shoulder. I goes, come look at these titles. And every time I'd show him titles, he'd always go, oh, I think Chew with Your Mind Open would be great.
I love that. I have that book right here, by the way. I'll show everybody. And I'll put links in the episodes so everybody has links to all of these books.
So the biggest challenge became when book 2 came out, I thought, I would really like there to be a look to these books to where it seems like there was a logic and a wayfinding system to them. So I thought I want to do gum again. I started thinking about, okay, now I'm talking about the middle of a career. What do I do for my second book? And I thought I want to use chiclets.
Mm.
I want to use a visual of chiclets because it's a slightly more elevated kind of gum than the bubble gum on my first cover. So Spit and Chiclets was a desire to use the visual of chiclets and then to figure out a title I could use that played into that. And I had a partner I worked with years ago. Every time we lost good work in a meeting, he would say, well, now we're spitting chiclets. And I always thought it was the funniest thing around. I did not realize it was a hockey podcast, which it
Yep.
is. But that's how I arrived at the second. And then the third was a matter of trying to find yet again an elevated level of gum that's somehow above chiclets. So we said, well, what if it was a stick of gum? Suddenly
Mm-hmm.
I'm working with stick. What can I do with stick? And I originally thought up Sticks and Stones and was
Mm-hmm.
happy with that until I realized there are 400 books with the title Sticks and Stones.
Right.
So I was working with my graphic designer on it, and I don't remember if it was his idea or mine. I loved the conciseness of it. We just flipped it
Mm-hmm.
around. And the minute it was
Right.
Stones and Sticks, I thought, oh, that's so much. It's so much more interesting to me as Stones and Sticks.
I
But it was a
agree.
desire not to be one of 400 books with that title, but rather the only book
Yeah. Yeah.
with it flipped around like that.
Yeah, I love that. I love the synergy of it, and to me that continuity, and it's almost like this is 3 volumes of a large memoir. It
Yeah,
seems
yeah.
because it's based on the wisdom of your father and the things that he taught us. But I think also probably reflection of your personal journey through your
Oh, yeah.
career. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit about that journey.
So I found my way into advertising through the Ad Center, which was an ad school before people really knew what ad schools were, and it was owned by Adweek. So I would do night classes at Ad Center, and I think my dad was very careful about letting me decide if I didn't want to do it. But lo and behold, I start taking the classes and really enjoying them. And next thing you know, I've got a portfolio put together. So I think I was there I took 11 classes at Ad Center, and that was all the disciplines. But I pretty much knew I wanted to be a writer or an art director. And I think writer appealed to me more because my hand skills just aren't that great as an art director. So,
Yeah, I know what you mean. And I was an art director. I know what you mean.
but, but that's how I came into it. And I think people are always surprised to hear. So your dad didn't push you into advertising? Oh no,
Mm.
not even close. And I think if he had and told me what a great agency Chiat Day was, I wouldn't have done it. I
Mm.
would have been too freaked out. But he never bothered telling me that, and I didn't learn it until I was halfway through Ad Center classes, and I had a lot of developing to do. But thanks to the advice from my dad, I think I became a quick study, and I was a little bit older than most people when they started advertising. I had to bumble around for a couple of years. So there's kind of a late starter mentality to me too. And that continues to this day. I feel like I'm a 64-year-old working copywriter, but I feel like I'm still 15 years old. I'm going to project that if you're like me, you get around kids who want to do this, people excited about thinking, and it's like a drug. You get me in a
Mm.
room full of young students who really want to do this, and I walk out as inspired as they do. You know, versus a bunch of colleagues who want to sit around and bitch about how nobody does anything good anymore. That's just not true. And I hear it so much, and I always stop them in their tracks and go, okay, then explain to me why Dr. Rick exists for Progressive. Tell me why the Volkswagen commercials right now out of Johannes, don't even
Yeah.
remember the whole name,
Right.
are so good.
Leonardo. Yeah.
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 Tell me why the Apple commercials are so wonderful to watch. You want to tell me no work, good work's being done? I think what's just behind that is no good work is being done by you.
Yeah, I think that's true. And,
Right.
there's just a lot more noise today because there's a lot more
Yeah.
channels of communication. So we get a little overwhelmed with the tsunami of content,
Mm-hmm.
amounts of content. And that makes it's harder to pull Waldo out of that
It is
mass.
true. I mean, that's absolutely fair. I think it's harder
Mm.
now than it used to be. But I always, when people start telling me it's impossible, but on the upside of that is, it's not impossible to put together something for relatively cheap.
I know that you do a lot of mentoring. I don't know how official that is, but talk to us a little bit about kind of your efforts in mentoring others.
Um, the extent of the mentorship I do, Bart, is really offering to talk to college classes, and usually I can sell a handful of books when I do that, or I try to put the book sales in front of it. You know, if a teacher wants to assign his kids my book, and I say kids because everybody's younger than me, um, if he's willing to do that, or he's willing to put my book on the reading list, I'll talk to his class. So that's kind of the extent of my mentorship. I do offer one-on-one mentoring services. They're not cheap, and therefore I think they're priced they're priced in such a way that if somebody comes to me for mentorship and they're paying for it, they're going to get mentorship. Um, but I'm also a working writer.
Right. And I really don't think you can mentor well if you don't keep your blade sharp. And you keep your
I agree.
blade sharp by doing.
Yeah, I think if you're not able to take a student's idea and go, there's something really good here. What if you do this with it, and have them
Right.
go, ooh. I mean, there's no greater feeling in the world. The Land Rover spot with the camera coming out of the ground, we had this idea to position the brand as the most well-traveled vehicles on earth. And the reason we did that is Jeep was doing such a good job of owning North American territory. Like every Jeep model is named after a trail in North America. And it dawned on us, wow, they're doing such a good job of sewing up North America. Why don't we just own the world? We'll let them have North America. Because Land Rover was a global phenomena.
Mhm.
And once we came to the realization that at any given time there's a Land Rover somewhere else doing something more interesting than what it's probably doing in North America, that's what led to that spot. Um,
And it's just a tremendous idea, and it's so well executed.
so we walked it
Yeah.
over to the account side and we showed them the idea, and they go, "Oh, that's great. We can't do it." And then because of the $550,000 limitation, and a
Yeah.
young account executive said, and I quote, "Well, that sucks that you can't show it. You should take it to the meeting and refuse to show it to them." And
Mm.
that's exactly what we did. So
Yeah.
on the day of the pitch, we walked into the client. We said, "We have 4 TV spots with us today, and we're very much looking forward to showing you 3 of them." And then the head guy goes, "What did you just say?" We said, "Well, we can show you 3 of our 4 spots." He goes, "Why?" We said, "Well, you can't afford the 4th one." And he goes, "Well, I want to see it."
Of
Out comes the
course.
idea. I don't think
Yeah.
we even looked at the other boards, Bart. So
Hmm.
I never really walked around feeling like you can't do great advertising for anything if you're able to ask the right questions and just really put your nose to the grindstone.
Right.
And I think that's the other thing about my dad is his attitude is you go to a crappy agency, you make the work better. You go to a great agency, you make the work better. That's
Right.
always the goal. So when people ask me how come you never worked at Wyden, it's like I would be petrified to walk into Wyden because I don't think I can do better than Frozen Moment. I don't think I can
Yeah.
do better than If You Let Me Play. I mean, no offense.
Yeah. No.
Like what?
Right.
And I've had this conversation with creatives that tell me they want to go there, and I go, great. That's
Yeah.
perfectly fine. You want to go there, but don't go there and just be one of the people who worked on the account.
And that's one of the things that I really admire about just watching what you do and writing these books. I know writing books is difficult, and you got to have some tenacity to follow through to get 3 of these things printed
Well,
and
I
selling.
mean
I mean,
that
that takes passion.
that's probably the word I would put in front of everything, Bart. You
Uh-huh.
have to have you have to have talent. But if you have a little bit of talent and a lot of tenacity, you will win 90% of the time
Right.
because you'll be the person still working on it after round 4 and 5 when everybody else is writing off the client. And how
Right.
many times have you seen round 4 or 5 turn into something great?
Because, being a great agency and doing the great work, it puts a lot of pressure on everybody.
Bart, one of the funny things about me is following my dad in this business. His agency did 1984. His agency did Porsche. His
Mm-hmm.
agency did California coolers. And I mean, you could just rattle off so many things.
I know.
So it was never about me trying to do better than Chiat Day. It was
Mm-hmm.
about me trying to live up to that level. Something my dad told me one time about Lee, and I never forgot it. He said, trust me when I tell you this. The thing that made Lee Clow so great is he was very strategic. He understood how to talk to clients about their business.
Absolutely.
And he understood that the business is in solving business problems. It's not just getting the can. It's not just doing the spot everybody's talking about. I look at Greg Hahn as an example, right? What Greg Hahn is doing
Who?
right now with Mischief. Greg Hahn,
Oh,
H-A-H-N.
great. Yes, right.
The man's clearly a genius, but you can reach out to him. And I reached out to him and I said, I would like to send you my book and maybe have you write a blurb. And he said, sure. No, actually, he said, why don't you ask my executive creative director, Bianca, and if she won't do it, I will.
Mm-hmm.
So I asked her and she didn't do it, and he did.
Boy,
But
that's nice. That's nice.
well, there are people like that, people like Mike Hughes, may he rest in peace.
Yeah,
When he was
Mike.
at Martin Agency, I was at GSD&M. I used to write him compliments. Just saw the caveman spot. Mike, you don't know
Yeah.
me, but I've got to tell you, that is just off the charts. And he would always write me right back, and he said, well, really, you need to tell that to the people who came up with the idea, and he would tell me their name.
You remember that agency, Rocket Burkett Winslow? You remember that
Yes,
agency?
yes.
Well, I sent little miniature books out to and Mike Winslow, who is the creative director, he got back to me. He sent my portfolio back to me because I just asked for a critique. I wrote him a letter, said, I'm not looking for a job yet because I know I'm not there for you, not at
Mm-hmm.
that level. But if you could just tell me how to get it there, I will keep working. He
Great.
sent back my book and it was just copies of the work.
Yeah.
And he wrote little notes on everything.
Wow.
I implemented all of that work and I got a much better job, went to a much better place because of that. I
Sure.
bet it was 20 years later I met him face to face. And I said, or either that or we were on a call together, maybe judging or something. We did something where we interacted. And I said, you changed my career.
Yeah.
And he
Yeah.
said, what? And I said, I sent you, I know you don't remember this, but I sent you my little miniature book and you creative directed it.
Yeah.
And it changed the trajectory of my career.
Well, Bart, that's what my father did for me.
Mm-hmm.
But he did it 1,000 times.
Yeah.
And he did it in bite-sized chunks so it was never overwhelming.
Right.
And it wasn't until I turned around and looked back and realized, oh my God, he had me marching across ball fields, taking one ideas to clients, and just like I look back and I go, I can't believe I did that. But I did it because he would tell me, boy, that's a really good idea. Don't take a straw dog into that meeting.
Right.
Tell your account people, walk in with one idea and blow it out. And I think,
and I think you're sharing something that's gold. And it's gold.
Yeah. Well, how many people can honestly tell you when they come home and they say, Mom and Dad, I'm going into advertising, that their parents understand what the hell they're talking about?
Yeah.
Versus somebody who'd seen it all, done it all, or know somebody who did and saw both sides of it. So the funniest thing I can tell you about my dad is he programmed me not to buy into the Chiat Day ethos, to respect my marriage, to love my life, to have a hobby, to start early, to leave on time. Doesn't mean I didn't stay late working on pitches, but I stayed late so rarely that it was a novelty when I did it.
I think one of the things that I've told my mentees is when they're working you to death, there's one of three reasons. They're either so disorganized that there's busy work being done that doesn't have to be done. They're just too disorganized to make it efficient. B, they want to make a lot of money, so they're making you work the job of two people,
Right.
or C, it's a combination of everything.
Yeah.
It's all of the above. And I said, and those places might be a place that you put some time in because there's a benefit to you, but
Sure.
you can't put a career into it if you value things like family and other aspects of life that when you look back from our age, you go, I'm glad I didn't miss that. Because you
Well,
only get one chance.
it's interesting you say that because I'm going to use Crispin as an example. Okay.
Yeah.
Crispin reinvented advertising for about 20 years. I mean,
They
off
did.
the charts, right?
Right. Right.
But when you ask me why they're almost, I won't say they're dead, they're still out there, right? But their work is just not, it's mediocre, right? Maybe it's on the better side of mediocre, but it's mediocre. And then I ask myself how you get there. And I think how you get there, Bart, is that you hire kids straight out of ad school, you put cots
Mm-hmm.
in the offices, you convince them they can live off food that you pay for at night, you give them free
Mm-hmm.
energy drinks, you do everything you can to encourage them to never leave your building, and you convince them they're going to be famous.
So let's talk. I want to talk about things that are not non-related but creative. So
Sure.
you're really like, I want to go back to the gearhead thing because I'm just so impressed with your artistry uh, of
Oh,
uh, reclaiming the classic and redoing it. And like you have
yeah.
I think you have a pickup that has a name. What's the name of your pickup that you
I've actually
redid?
been thrown off of Facebook pages because of the name. It's El Chapo.
See, that's the downside. Well, so do you have any other projects going? Are you working on
Oh,
a new?
the only thing I lose sleep over is how I'm going to have enough time left to get
Yeah,
to
I
everything.
know that feeling.
Right?
But
I've
I
got,
think having those things, man, that keeps you young, that keeps you going. You
well,
just you don't have time to think about, hey, the end.
yeah,
It's
right,
just
right. You're absolutely right. It's like
yeah,
I didn't sit down and write a book to monetize. I sat down to write a book because I realized my father gave me so many things. And whether
yeah.
he wanted it or not, I was going to tell the world.
I learned some things today that are going to help me do better work, and I hope it will help you as well. If you want to know more information from Cam, see the links below and subscribe to her channel. Leave us a comment and like this episode. All these things help us bring more brand storytellers to you, and we'll see you the next time we do. Thank you.